Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Teton County Justice Center SPET Education Session, Lunch and Learn. My name is Stephen Hall, and I'll be speaking today representing a much larger team. I'm from Anderson Mason-Dale, an architect with the team. We also have a number of other team members, including Wember, the project manager for the team, and the Teton County staff and members that are helping lead this project. Today, we want to spend the next 15-20 minutes just giving an update to the group. The update will include the history, design process, design direction of the Teton County Justice Center and the SPET initiative that is up for vote in November. So with that said, please feel free to type questions as they come into the comments. We will have time to answer questions at the end, but if there are questions that come up, please feel free to include in the chat. And with that said, we'll get going. So this project does have a long history. We, Anderson Mason-Dale, as the architect, jumped on board in 2020, and that's when we began with the project. But prior to that, there have been facilities analysis by the National Center for State Courts that occurred in 2018 and 2019. That report came out calling for the need for improved conditions of the courthouse. Since then, we've gone through various design propositions and iterations and studies. All have been in conceptual design and schematic design studies, studying how best to build new, to renovate, to improve. All forms of improvement have been explored, and we'll go through each of these. Through this process, we have gone through numerous evaluations, including seismic evaluations of the building, security evaluations of the building, education and tours to the Board of County Commissioners. And the project has gone through a number of starts as new directions have presented themselves simply because the challenges with security, the challenges with seismic design of the existing building presented a new path that we had to follow. So today in 2024, we have a path for a concept design, and we'll get to that now. But before we get to that, just wanted to click through the quick history of the various assessments, both from a space needs assessment, security, and energy. So in 2019, the National Center for State Courts performed a departmental space needs assessment where they took into account the spaces that are in the existing courthouse and what growth projection might occur. And I think that the modest growth projections were included in this, but effectively came up with a number of around 64,000 square feet that a modern, contemporary, right-sized courthouse would accommodate. The current courthouse is closer to 32,000 square feet. They also performed an assessment on security. And they came up with a large list of inefficiencies that don't meet current standards and current codes. One of the most significant ones is the lack of accessibility, ADA access within the facility, and deferred maintenance needs, specifically along the energy systems and mechanical systems, which are nearing the end of their life cycle. The other significant one is the last bullet point I just want to touch on is a 911 call dispatch center that is currently operating from the county's EOC, but also from their current jail. But the improvements to have this emergency response dispatch center were also top of the priority list on this assessment. So with that assessment, the county went ahead and put out a search, a national search to hire a design team to begin developing a range of concepts to understand renovation options, addition options, or even new building options. So that's when we came on board in 2020. So we did go through, we took that assessment that was started, and we began exploring options and upgrades. What we did find is that the existing building would not be able to accommodate all the ADA upgrades and system upgrades. And so we did begin looking towards addition and renovation. And we did also look toward phasing the project with an addition and renovation option. The ask that the county gave to the design team, or the charge and the challenge, was what could be done in the short term. What are the short-term solutions to marginally or improve this building modestly? So we did come up with a near-term plan. There was funding available at the time in 2021 to improve the building envelope. There was also security capital funds to hit the large, the most significantly impact security components, and that would be a new vestibule and public entry, securing the judges and staff entry, and then using technology to improve security throughout the building. A lot of the technological security improvements were acted upon. What we found through this study is we began developing strategies to improve the exterior envelope and energy efficiency of the building, in addition to adding ballistic windows, an important component when you have public servants, judges, county attorneys right on the street level. The ballistic windows and the envelope improvements were going to add a lot of weight to the building. And that weight, we found, is going to be very hard to accommodate. This is a summary of those near-term envelope improvements under 4 categories. The diagram plan in red shows the 2 areas of new vestibules, new entry points. The energy improvement in the envelope, an audit and analysis was performed on site using thermal heat mapping of the building and understanding where the energy loss was occurring. And then long-term durability and longevity. The assumption there is using as much of that new reuse of the existing building as much as possible. And then the other thing is remaining operational. So all these improvements would need to occur without disrupting the operations of the courthouse. So at that time, as we began developing concept designs, a CMAR, which is a contractor manager at risk, it's a general contractor who comes on board early to help validate costs and to help plan for constructability. So when we did that, we began to look at what we could do to the envelope. That spurred an analysis of what the structure could handle within upgrades, replacing mechanical systems in the attic. So here's a photo of one of our engineers exploring the attic. You can see mechanical systems up there and the structure up there as well. What that ultimately did, it uncovered the need for a seismic evaluation. Replacing the mechanical systems out of the attic certainly require opening up the roof, putting in a new air handling unit and new mechanical systems, or at least replacing components of them that were at the end of their life cycle. Doing that did require our engineering team and us to evaluate the weights of added equipment and added envelope. So what we found, KLNA was the structural engineer on board. What the Tier 1 and Tier 2 seismic evaluation uncovered was a few things. One, when the building was built in the 1960s, no seismic performance code was established. So this was pre-codification of seismic concerns, seismic codes, effectively, that govern how buildings of this type need to be built today. It also uncovered the fact that the building itself, parts of it, the concrete masonry units that fill the building, were not built as designed. Specifically, what we found was that the concrete masonry block, it was called out in the original design documentation in the 1960s to be fully grouted and have steel reinforcement rebar through them. Well, the rebar was put in. We found that the grout, which is the binding element, was not put in a number of walls within the building. So that was discovered through a forensic exploration. And I think those building deficiencies certainly create a higher security risk. So we did dial in a bit more and uncovered which walls and where those may have occurred. But the exterior walls, the primary district court, the means of egress components, meaning the interior stairwell and elevator shaft, those all had concrete masonry block that were not reinforced. So with that said, it became very hard to justify major improvements on a building that was this deficient. And again, I want to stress on this call, the building has stood for over 40 years, and no event has put this building at risk. But it does not meet current codes and current expectations of a modern courthouse today. So we did begin scenario planning of a new build. We looked at elements in which the detention center stayed. It was absorbed into a new justice center. We looked at options in which you could phase the building. Ultimately, the position where the current courthouse sits, that's scenario B, was the most optimized place to build the new courthouse for a lot of reasons. It preserves a lot of the assets potentially that the county owns and has on this block, and just had much more constructability efficiencies. So we did model and have a projection for a cost model of this initial phase. As we began to develop that scenario B.3 at this point, but that was, we went through various iterations of this scenario B. We did look when we brought in a new detention center and we validated the National Center for State Courts program. It does result in roughly a 90,000 square foot building. We do know today that size of a building might be a bit out of the mark of what a budget could sustain. And so we have reduced that overall square footage amount through additional studies and additional planning. At the same time, we were given direction to explore sustainable strategies for the project. Building a new building like this, we did conduct environmental design workshops with a number of stakeholders, county representatives. And what we did, this was summer of 2023, we met within these workshops to try to establish a decision-making framework and goals to then really be able to review and, if possible, select a rating system. I'm sure many of you may have heard of different systems. There's LEED, there's Green Globes, there's the CORE and the Living Building Challenge. So there are a number of options, and really wanting to align the design metrics and measures to really have an effective outcome. So it was at that point that a lot of the seismic tier 1 and tier 2 seismic evaluations came to a front, and it became clear that a new building was the best course of action as decided on by the county. And we put a pause. We were asked to pause on the design so the county could evaluate funding options and evaluate ways to make it a reality. So I think I want to switch gears there, and I answer this very fundamental question. Why a new justice center? Why not a remodel? And this is a bit of a recap, but the building does contain essential services. The 911 call center, the sheriff's office, they are the folks who will be the first to respond in an emergency within this county. Security, sightline, circulation, a lot of the security issues are core and fundamental to the existing building. You cannot fix the reality of an insufficient building that was not built to suit. At the time it was, and it served the county well. It is not a bad building. I don't want to mistake that, but it does not meet current knowledge and best practices as far as we would build a courthouse today. I think the structural issues we went over with the seismic, space and layout issues, the county operations of the courthouse are bursting with projections of potential county growth. There is no room for growth. And finally, coming back to accessibility and ADA issues. And then finally, the public servants who work in this building day in, day out certainly deserve a respectable workplace. So a remodel, we've done the due diligence on several fronts, and it was determined a remodel just cannot resolve these major issues. And a renovation will be much less efficient. We'll spend a lot of money almost rebuilding the building from scratch from the inside out to get something that still doesn't work quite as well. So with that, we do have some rough concepts of what this building might be. These concepts that you'll see, they're certainly driven by the following drivers on the screen. Safety and security, growth and operations, accessibility and modernization, resilience and sustainability, and a civic investment that will last for generations. All these things are really important, and the county and us as the design team do not take lightly that civic investment. And so coming upon and developing a design that is functional, that meets all these requirements, but really is responsible and is in every way possible, including fiscally. So the massing of this building, you can see kind of that middle set of diagrams. We've gone through several workshops and floor plans and iterations to try to get the building to be as efficient as possible to serve the needs of those that are in the building. But the components that are in the building, starting from the level 1, is the sheriff's office that would be accessed mid-block. We'll have some site diagrams and plan diagrams, but access mid-block on Simpson. And the sheriff's office would be the frontage along Simpson Street facing south. The Sally Port and secure parking would be on the alley side of the block. And then as you rise up level 2, you have the district attorney. The detention center would be in the back of the building. That would also include 911 call center and other services the county provides related to the clerks in courts and district attorney, other office space, essentially. The 911 call center is certainly an important one. And that, in addition to the sheriff's office, would qualify this as the highest level emergency operations building. And then finally, on the 3rd floor, we would have the courts and the courtrooms and the judges' chambers and circuit clerks, all serving the courts. So a 3-story building on an urban site. There is a fair amount of grade, so if people can see my mouse here, this is the south face. This is Simpson Street. King Street is on the western edge, so it is at the corner on the northeast corner of Simpson and King. So a 3-story building there is a slightly higher building than what you would see in its surrounding context. But I think doing everything we can to make it feel like a 2-story building. There's a lot of examples here in Jackson, the historic district in particular, where the building feels like a 1 or 2-story building and the rest of the mass steps back. And so that's what these diagrams are showing is as you resolve circulation and public flow to the courts gallery and courts above, finding opportunity to step back the building to make it feel and have a really wonderful pedestrian experience that is in line with the massing that you would see within the town of Jackson. Here's just a quick snapshot of a study model, a physical model. You can see the offices and the sheriff's offices that might occur on level 1 and 2, having an entry point at the midpoint, and then stepping back the building where it says the courts gallery there with views out to Snow King, and then stepping back as well on the King Street side. You can see we've highlighted in this light orange sort of the building heights. We call them datums. They're effectively just surrounding building heights that are context lines. So the design quality and the architecture itself is still under development. And although we have a pretty strong target for a building size and a building budget that is all part of the SPET, the architecture, I think, will continue to evolve as the design process continues. But I think these ideas on the left, these themes, are very important, not just to the town, but in a once in a generation investment in a building like this. All are very much at play. And perhaps should have been listed first is the Jackson identity and context. The projects you see on the screen, many of them are in Jackson. Others are Justice Center examples and buildings that have a high level of security and resiliency and a civic quality and character to them. So combining the warmth, the natural material of Jackson identity and context with a civic, functional, and secure building type would be the architecture that the team and the county is aspiring towards. A quick set of plan diagrams on level 1, 2, and 3, just to communicate spaces, and this is a concept level bubble diagram that tells you what's in the building and how things are located and critical adjacencies. So again, on level 1, you'd have the main entry on Simpson, and then moving towards the sheriff's office would be located on level 1. By the time you're on King Street, that's partially buried within the hillside that runs down Simpson. You'd have a booking area that is the place where would rise up directly towards the detention housing. And then the back on the alley side would be the secure parking and Sallyport in the gray. Up on level 2, you would have the detention center tucked in the middle and the back of the building. And to be clear, there would be no connectivity between the detention center and these other programs. The detention center would effectively be a double corridor standalone, and it would be accessed from the Sallyport and from the sheriff's booking area. And then the other office spaces that are located around the county attorney, dispatch 911 call center, and the other services related to the courts, for example, the victim services. And then finally on level 3, the public gallery, the building would step back and you'd have a larger public gallery, in this case facing Snow King, wonderful views and daylight to that gallery. And then all the various support operations, from security to the judge's chambers, to the circuit clerk, and also the district clerk. This diagram just shows potential ways for the public to circulate. I did mention the entry potentially being on the southeastern edge, really mid-block of Simpson. Because the building is split in the grade, there likely is opportunity to have an entry point for the courts on level 2, right at the corner of King and Simpson. So that is a scenario we are exploring within the concept design as well. And then finally on level 4 would be the courts gallery. So the areas in the bright yellow are effectively the areas that the public would engage and be able to engage the various county attorney or office functions on level 2, be able to engage the sheriff's office on level 1, and then finally access the courts itself on level 3. Just wanted to give an image, a present example. This is a Justice Center in Bozeman, Montana. Views of the Bridger Mountains, not quite as good as I think in Teton County, but again, a elevated courts gallery that has wonderful views in a context. So with that, I think that is the extent of the content, and we are here open to answer questions and check the chat. I know it doesn't look like there's a lot of chatter in the chat, but that concludes kind of the pre-prepared update that the design team had. So I'll pause there. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for your time. I hope this was valuable and educational. Please, for those who are looking to spread the word, we welcome continued communication, and please feel free to reach out to your county or county officials for any follow-up questions or information. And with that, I think we can end it there unless there are any last-minute questions. All right.